about that I did that. And this morning I turned it on at 5:2, and it just was doing the worm winding thing forever.
Yeah, it is what it is. And I was looking at that fire services report, waiting for you to come on.
That's
Anyway.
that's a very good report. I think every citizen should read it. And
Yeah.
And maybe do you want to start with that? I don't know.
No, we're right. Okay, so let's just start on a okay. First of all, there's a couple of public beaches. There's basically two warnings for staying out of the water at public beaches. One at Casablanca Beach in Grimsby, the other at 50 Point Conservation Area Beach in Hamilton. The rest of the beaches have all been tested safe, which probably bodes well for us overall. But if you're going to the beach, particularly this weekend, of course, check on the safety before you go, particularly if you intend to go swimming.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a good thing to remember. Sometimes just go to the beach, and there might be, and there is an issue here too, because a little later on, and we have an article on too much effluent or bad effluent being put back into the water here.
Yeah,
and that might be a part of the cause.
More than likely.
And you definitely want to, around here, there is a lot of sewage. There's a lot of old sewers. There's all kinds of things. So that can get into the water, unfortunately, around beaches. Most of the time it's good for swimming, but once in a while it gets contaminated.
Yeah. If you think about 50 Point Conservation Area Beach in Hamilton and Casablanca Beach in Grimsby, they're fairly close to one another. It's probably something like that.
Yeah, it's probably, increase. It could be algae stuff. Almost always it's fecal particles sitting in the water. And that comes from animals, runoff from fields, farmers' fields. So it'd be manure running off into the waterway. But a lot of times it's just plain ordinary effluent from sewage systems that are old, and like our own particular sewage system that's old and not up to snuff. And sometimes, and the discharge of water going in, there's slick. And oh wow, your personality shows. There's Mr.
That's Chris Simone, yeah, and Mike Cushman.
Hey, Mike, Metaphysical Mike, what's going on? Morning. Do not swim in the poop.
To be quite honest, I wouldn't swim in any of those beaches, but but I would sit nicely by the side of them. I'd probably stick my hand in the water a few times, but not swim in them.
What was that movie with Peter Sellers and Ringo Starr? Where Ringo Starr was a bum, living on a park bench, and a very rich man, played by Peter Sellers, adopted him just like on the spot, and he went around and showed what the corruption of people and what they were like. And one of the demonstrations he wanted to make from his brand new son, who just immediately started calling him dad, and that was Ringo Starr, is he had a big swimming pool full of poop, just like Mike Cushman said, and of course nobody go near it. So what he did instead, was he wanted to demonstrate something to his new son, and he threw a pile of money into the poop, and then everybody went swimming.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a lot of how people are, right?
I suppose, and I don't want to say, oh, look at those people, because we're all the same. I mean, we all have somehow traits that are similar to one another. So
you've made a perfect segue into the next story. Can the federal liberals pull a Camilla out of their hat? Referring, of course, to the fact that moving ahead, surging ahead in the polls.
Yeah, they the federal liberals seem to want to do everything that the American Democrats do. They shadow them. They even talk. Their talking points are the same. You know that it's one of those. It's one of those disconcerting things for me that if they do it, we can do it. If they haven't done it, we can't do it yet, and which is bothersome to me. But because of the extreme unpopularity of Prime Minister Trudeau, and I have myself predicted his 9/11 on 9/11, but I doubt very much that he'll go then. But he has to step down. I think he's going to do the final copy of the American Democrats, and he's going to step down like Joe Biden.
There's an interesting thing is about that is on I think it's Tuesday, he became the 7th longest serving prime minister in Canadian history, having overtaken Brian Mulroney in that slot.
Yes, continuous serving, I think, because his father was probably the longest serving if you add his 2 different elections up.
Yeah, because he had 2 terms, right? Yes, yeah. Talking about continuous serving, and that's what they're talking about. So he was basically, no, this was Monday, sorry. So that's when he kind of went over that limit. So yeah, he's got time to resign at 9/11, or is he trying to make it to number 6?
I don't know but this whole idea that can the founding, and this is National Post, of course, there's conservative paper, so we'll keep that in mind, and that's not a slight on them, but you have to mention that just like you do when you put out the Star, because they are a left leaning. This is a conservative leaning, so it doesn't look good for Trudeau. And there is a lot of murmuring in his cabinet, particularly when they lost the Toronto-St. Paul by-election. They are losing. They're 3rd place in Quebec right now, according to the polls. Conservatives have got a 20-point lead over them, and who is extremely unpopular is Trudeau. And Mick Jagger got a rather big surprise when he came to one of the Canadian venues. I don't know which one, and he started to say, "Oh, we really love your prime minister," and that he's thinking back 2015 when Trudeau was a darling of the world. He's not well loved here now. He said, "Oh, we really love your prime minister and the family." And everybody boos him off the stage, and he's just completely in shock. And then he has to turn the narrative. Well, I really like to congratulate the Canadian soccer team for doing much better than it used to do. How about that? He says. Then everybody cheers.
Yeah, well, I suppose that getting into the World Cup and actually, but they didn't win. They didn't win the ladies' gold medal again. Anyway,
sadly,
that was probably too late for Mr. For Mick Jagger.
Yes, but I thought he was a complete shock on stage. If you see the video, he's like, "What is going on here?" Trudeau, who is because he hadn't updated himself. Like if he came here in 2016, everybody would have cheered. But he's coming in 2024, and Trudeau is extremely unpopular. So I think that Trudeau will do the Biden thing and step down, and it's just a matter of when. Otherwise,
as you know, I've said he won't. He'll go blithely on to the end. But I also think that maybe the end might come sooner than he thinks.
I don't know. Right now, now they're talking about a Kamala moment, so they're waiting for the All-Star to come out of nowhere.
I don't know.
Kamala was no All-Star, but they made her an All-Star. And it worked. It really worked down there. Like because all of a sudden there was this surge of enthusiasm. You got a much younger person. She's of mixed race. She's established herself in different government and become the vice president. And everybody forgets how unpopular a vice president she was. And so they reinvented her really quick. But I don't think the Canadian federal Liberals can do the same.
Well, okay,
they cannot reinvent one of them.
Mike says if Canada kisses Camilla's ass, then what happens if Trump gets in?
Yeah.
Very good question there, Mike.
Well, we got to do a double kissing, I guess. We don't want to, definitely don't want to kiss her ass. And just remember, she has been unproven. The whole narrative here is on hope that she will be a good.
But again, that is always the case where, if you have two candidates, neither of which have been president before, that's always going to be the case, right? I know here you've got
the case now.
Yeah, it's not the case right now. You've got a former president and a VP fighting it off. But you see, being a VP is often seen as, as an important step in the right direction.
I suppose so, but she was a very unpopular VP, and some of the things she said were pretty dumb. But everybody chooses to ignore that right now, and now suddenly she's an all-star. But I think it's just based on the hope thing, and they have a very good narrative, very, very well scripted, and
all right.
But I don't think the federal Liberals are going to be able to recreate one of their own.
No, I don't.
Be that.
No, I don't think so either. Apparently, according to Peter Biker, Margaret Trudeau had dalliances with the Rolling Stone in the 70s, and the country was literally cracked by the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, the rumor was that, Margaret Trudeau, she's got some mental issues, and after she, separated from Pierre, maybe even before, she just kind of made herself known everywhere. And the rumor was she was betting the Stones. And I don't know if any of that's true or not, but she did act rather irrational. And it was, I don't know, big scandal going on.
Well, she seemingly acted irrational around a number of people, including allegedly Fidel Castro.
I wouldn't think she betted Fidel Castro. Trump's put that out there too. He might even be the son of Fidel. That's dumb as dumb can be, because he even looks like Trudeau. The young Trudeau looks like the other Trudeau. But let's face facts here. None of that's any good. It's all rubbish. And all that rumor is. But what about Margaret Trudeau doing what she did? We don't know.
We don't know, and that's the point about it. We will unlikely ever know. Okay, so moving on. Niagara Falls Fire Services labor update. It's an important one because there's quite a bit. It's a big report. It's how many pages? 13-page report was handed down at the city council meeting, right? And basically, the fire department is the single largest department within Niagara Falls, taking a quarter of the levy dollars that is given to the city. And also, for the top 100 paid employees in the city, 83 are from the fire department. And that's actually, so we've got very high paid department in comparison with the rest of the city. The other thing to note about this is that the current agreement with the Niagara Falls Firemen's Association, Niagara Falls Professional Firemen's Association, NFPFFA, expired last December. Really, Niagara Falls? Right? I've said this to every single one that we've had expire. Get your act together, negotiate 6 months beforehand, right? This should have been in last year's budget, not in this year's budget, right?
The biggest problem here, of course, is the volume, the amount that, and this is the reason why I added it here, because I was reviewing me and Paul were reviewing the
of course,
the agenda, and this is a real big standout. And this is not just a problem for Ontario; it's a problem for, or not just for Niagara Falls, but Ontario-wide. Firefighter compensation is becoming unsustainable, and this is the options that the CEO has given the city. You either find ways of reducing that expenditure, or you're going to have to reduce your services elsewhere in the city.
Yeah.
Every other department is asked to, they're having trouble getting talent into the city because we may not be paying as much. And the big reason is 25%, one of every dollar you spend on your city taxes goes to the fire department. And the compensation rate in the fire department is huge. There is also,
that's exactly what I was pointing at, why I was pointing that out,
Yes.
And also the other thing is, I know there's not a lot you can do about this, but the levy related to benefits, benefits, overtime, and WSIP is a significant chunk of that.
There's a big issue also is the sick days. They're allowed to accumulate them. They can have 130 sick days by the end of their contract, which they're able to cash in. That is, and I'll make this point here, that when sick days came out, they were there to protect people who got sick, not for people who wanted to take them for holidays.
Yes.
The idea is use them or lose them kind of thing. But they can accumulate them so that at the end of their contract, when they turn 59, they can take those 130 sick days. Now, remember, a firefighter only works about 90 days a year or something like that. It's very few days because they work 24-hour shifts, right? So
but as part of that working, they're not just, yes, they work 90 days of the year, and we're always grateful when they're out and saving places that are have caught fire, etc. But remember, there's a lot of work that they do that we don't see them doing because they're cleaning equipment, maintaining equipment, etc.
I don't think that, every fire department from the beginning of time have been able to do that, otherwise their equipment doesn't work. They have to keep everything clean. In my old fire department in Scarborough, they actually had a brass pole. They didn't use it anymore, but when they originally started, they still had that brass pole where they went down the pole so they get their fire trucks faster. The thing is, the compensation level is extraordinary. 83 of the top 100 employees of Niagara Falls are firefighters. The big problem that the CEO Burgess has made is you're going to have to start eating into your other departments, your finance department, your parks and rec, whatever else. And you will have to reduce services there, and you will not be able to attract the best talent for those jobs because the compensation rate for them will be decreased. Now, CUPE is a pretty good union, but if every department has to reduce their costs in order to bolster the fire department, because it seems to be sacrosanct, nobody will touch it. And we had a very good example of that when CEO Burgess recommended that our dispatch get united with the St. Catharines one, and it could save us $250,000. The fire department came up there and used their force to demand that we keep our own dispatch, and came up with a lot of reasons why they should. And you got guys like Mike Strange buying it hook, line, and sinker, but everybody else did too. Now they're faced with this situation. What do you do? Can you reduce or rein in firefighter compensation? And remember, this is an Ontario-wide problem. Every community is facing it.
But again, the Niagara Falls Professional Firefighters Association has a significant pull in the polls, and actually they vet candidates for election to the city. And there's I'm not saying that they say, that they've got their hooks into candidates, but it sure as heck feels that way.
Well, yeah, they are sort of revered, and it's pretty hard to if you've been around firefighters doing their job. I know I have a couple of relatives that are firefighters, and my uncle and my cousin have both had near-death experiences and had been laid up in hospitals because of their duty, doing their duty. And unfortunately, that's part of the thing. Part of it. So that's why people are so reluctant to rein them in. But somebody's got to say, you're paid too much. Too bad. You're paid too much. I'm sorry, you're paid too much.
Well,
it's not that you're paid too much. It's that we can't afford to pay you anymore.
Yeah.
And when 1 out of every $4 goes to the fire department, and the highest paid members of the city are 83 out of the 100 highest paid people in the city are firefighters, and you have accountants, and you've got other people out there trying.
You said firefighters, not necessarily firefighters, but people within the fire department.
Yeah, well, most of them are firefighters.
Many of
if you look at the compensation rate, it's chiefs and fire chiefs and so on and so forth. They're getting the biggest cabbage.
Well, along with what I've been saying for a long time, we overpay our top bureaucrats in this city, right? What's his name? Burgess gets somewhere in the region of $240,000. He's not, if you compare him to the top people in private industry, he's not more than a middle manager. He doesn't deserve a $250,000 salary. He's an $80,000 bureaucrat. That is all. We're overpaying people.
Well, he is being paid similarly to other bureaucrats.
I know he's being paid similarly to the others, but every city in the country overpays these people. They're not worth more than $100,000. They're not.
I beg to differ. I don't think $100,000 would be proper compensation for the CEO of Niagara Falls.
Well, I'm going to say, and also the same is true with like fire chiefs, etc. We overpay a lot of these people. Right? I know I'm an advocate for increasing pay within our community, but often we actually overpay the biggest bureaucrats that we have overpay them, right?
Well, getting back to the article, or this was for anybody's information. This was on the Niagara Falls City Council agenda that happened on Tuesday.
The last Tuesday, yeah.
Yes. So I would invite everybody to have a really good look at this. Every citizen should. I think the halo around the fire department will diminish somewhat when you realize that just about every other department and every other employee of the city is the resources are reduced and will be further reduced if we keep this kind of compensation going for the fire department. The fire department, and another issue, I brought up work days. They only work one 24-hour shift every once in a while. So they don't work very many days. And on their days off, they go off, and many of them go off and moonlight, find other jobs. Now, the problem with that is that they now put themselves at risk of getting hurt at another job.
Yeah.
If you get hurt at another job, and that job doesn't have full compensation like your fire job, let's say you break your hand and you come into the fire department and, oh, I broke my hand here, but you broke your hand on your moonlighting job. And most firefighters have moonlighting jobs. I know some of them were framers and roofers. Those jobs you can get injured doing them.
Yeah.
And if you're doing them on the side or your own little company, then you're not going to have the kind of compensation you need. So if you do hurt yourself, then you just wobble into the fire department. Oh, I twisted my leg, and then you can get your days off. So there's a lot of problems with the contracts with firefighters, and it's going to be a province-wide thing. It's going to take a while, but firefighter compensation is unsustainable, and it's unsustainable if you want to have a balanced city. So the firefighters are the godhead, and as we saw at the council meeting when Burgess tried to get $240,000 savings for the city by just
I know.
insisting on the dispatch.
That moving of the 911 callers made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it did. It was more efficient. As a matter of fact, the dispatchers can't be too happy about it because they would have got paid more if they transferred to the other system.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have lost any jobs. You know?
Yeah, no jobs would have been lost. But also it shows you what kind of power the fire department has. They don't like to share their they see their little empire crumbling if just a little part of it goes away.
Yeah.
And let's face it, like if the fire department goes against you during election time, you don't want that to happen. They're kind of like like APAC down south. I mean, that's a huge difference, but it's similar. Like you want your fire department. You don't want people in the fire department saying, no, don't vote for Peter Giblett.
Yeah, exactly. The whole point is that the fire department holds a lot of sway or not the fire department, the firemen's union holds a lot of sway in who people are voted for.
Yes, and let's make this very clear. This is not an attack on the fire department. We're going to have to always say this every time. Yeah. It's not a attack on the fire department. It's not a attack on the firefighters. It is a problem of sustainability. We are paying them too much. We cannot pay them that much anymore.
Yeah, and I have to also go to say that, hey, it's the fact that probably in the past we've overcompensated them.
Well, because it's an Ontario-wide thing, and they've got strong unions, they've dealt very well with the cities over the time. And the city, of course, wants to attract the best talent because our firefighters don't come from around here; they come from everywhere.
Yeah,
and so the real problem is compensation. Can we handle it? And I don't want to. The firefighters themselves will make arguments, but the teachers ran into this too. Their compensation levels were getting a little bit high for the tax base.
Yeah.
And you want the teachers to be paid as much as you could possibly pay them, and the firefighters too. But when it comes to the point where it becomes unsustainable, when other areas in your society have to suffer, are you going to have to close more parks to sustain the fire department? Are you going to have to reduce services in the city to support the fire service? If they're taking 25% of $1 out of every $4 as is, that is one department with an enormous burden to the city.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Financial.
that's an area, where can we make savings in that? Right?
There's been all kinds of, and I don't think the council will want to touch it. They'll say things like, can we have surcharges if they come to your house and nothing was wrong? Can we give, can we call this and that? I think a lot of the dispatchers have got, for one thing,
okay, so surcharges
sort out what the calls are. When the 911 calls in and they don't identify the problem, all the units go there. Firefighters get there first usually, but then the paramedics and the police all show up. If the dispatcher can identify
that's
the problem,
another issue. That is an issue, but what you were talking about is also that we have, talking about showing up when there are, and this one's an awkward one. When there are fire alarms triggered at hotels and things like that, 9 times out of 10, when the fire department gets there, there's no problem.
It's no problem. And do you now charge the hotel? Is that a way of making some of the money back?
In fact, actually, do we actually have a contract with the hotel that pays for some of the fire department?
Well, definitely the hotel, the fire department actually tried to stop the opening of one of the casinos or something like that because it wasn't up the fire code, and he got overruled. But when it was finally open to the public, those things would be taken care of. So they do a valuable service, no doubt. And
absolutely.
And I don't know how many, but remember, those hotels pay a lot of taxes too, so they're entitled to be covered as well.
And absolutely right, 100% right. When you come to this equation on all of that, it's a fine balance. But again, hotels, I have to wonder whether, and it's the same. This has been a question that has been raised in other cities. Is there a premium rate that they provide, that they pay extra to our fire department, so the fire department has extra income to cover those kind of expenses?
Well, you get into situations where the firefighters have to have equipment to get up the high story rescues and all that other stuff. When I worked at the combined cycle machine, gas generator machine at the paper mill in Thorold, the fire department bluntly told us they did not have the kind of equipment to rescue us if we got in trouble. So we had to learn to do self-rescue. We had to do a course on that. So we had to find ways in which to get our guys down from the heights there. Once they were down, the fire department or the paramedics could do us something, but they didn't have what it took to get us down. And so there's limitations to what the firefighters can do. They can't save everybody, but here we have getting right back to brass tacks. 1 out of every $4 goes to the firefighters. That's not sustainable. How do you rein it in? Yeah,
and you raised that perfectly valid question about when we call out the fire department. Basically the 911 operators triaging the call correctly.
Yeah, if they can do that, if they can get, like, for instance, my neighbor went away and the paramedic showed up to take her away yesterday, but I didn't see the fire department. I didn't see the police, anyone. So somebody clearly identified the problem as a medical one, the paramedics, and no one else showed up. Yeah,
exactly. And that actually helps a lot of the cost efficiency, because if you're sending the wrong type of vehicles out because you don't know enough, there's always going to be times when that happens. For example, there's an accident on on Lundy's Lane. You've got to put them all there because you don't know, right? You've got to assume somebody's injured. You've got to assume that there's a risk of there being a fire. So yes, you've got to call all 3 out on that occasion.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but where somebody's having heart palpitations or something, you don't need the fire department.
Yeah, my uncle's having a heart attack. Yeah, it's clearly ambulance. Yeah, it's clearly ambulance only, right? Paramedics only, right?
Yeah, so that could save, but that's not really going to save us much money because you still have a huge fire department. So you're sitting in a situation where the fire department is invaluable. They save people's lives. They prevent damage from growing. All these other things. But what do you do when you're paying them too much?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we're paying them too much. I'm saying we're paying them more than we can afford.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and that's an important distinction there, right? It's not about it's not about the individual firefighters and what they're worth, so to speak. It's about what the city can afford.
Yeah, this report, I trust that a lot of the members of council will kind of try to ignore it or turn the other way for a while. Burgess is going to make them face it, however. None of them want to say anything that will be perceived as against the firefighters because they want that seat the next time they come up for election.
Yeah.
So so they're going to have to really, really work on their wording here. Oh, well, maybe we can find other places and all this. But he was tasked with coming up with $1 million savings. And so far, they've turned him down on one thing he had for the fire department. And he's given due warning and due diligence. The fire department's compensation is more than we can handle.
Well,
if you want to continue this, he is saying, then we will have to cut other services and we will not be able to attract the best talent for the other departments because we won't have enough money to pay them the going rate. So if you're going to bring in somebody in planning, an engineer or something like that, and he says, well, you know what, we used to pay the engineers $120 a year, but now we got to save, we got to pay them $115, or we're not going to give them a raise for the next 5 years because we got to make sure the fire department is funded. What's that person going to do? Well, I'll see. Well, it looks like I'm going to Guelph, right?
Okay,
and so you will have trouble retaining your talent.
Okay, Niagara Falls had 192 employees on the Sunshine List, and 125 were from the fire department. So there are 159 fire department positions. 153 are within the fire union, 1 CUPE, 5 non-union, right? So 76% of the department were earning more than $100,000.
Yeah.
That's where the unsustainability is.
Yeah, particularly when we get one day a week, 1 24-hour shift. I forget how many 24-hour shifts, but it's not very many. And they are putting themselves at risk by moonlighting and getting injured and so on. So their sick day compensation is incredible. It amounts, their sick day compensation per year amounts to 10% of their time served as a firefighter if they took them. And I'll put it this way: sick time was never meant to be that. Sick time was meant to be there for you if you get ill. So if one of your members gets seriously ill and has to go off for 6 months to 2 years, and I've seen these, myself, so the sick fund can sustain them. It is not for you to take a sick day because you have it, and that is the wrong attitude. And unfortunately, the unions have allowed that to go on.
The other thing
is not for you to take. If you're sick, stay home, definitely, but it is not for you. Well, you know what? I got 10 sick days. I got to start using them up. No,
it's not also shouldn't be. I'm opposed to this kind of. Well, we'll trade it in. We'll have. I've built up 150 sick days in my career as a firefighter. I'm going to now take whatever job you are. I'm not trying to.
I think you're allowed up to 130 days. Which is compensation.
I'm now gonna take 3 months off at the end of, or I'm gonna get 3 months extra pay at the end of my career. Yeah, no.
Yeah, well,
As opposed
I
to
know
that.
a person that worked on not the fire department, but worked on the
Well, as I said, it's not.
worked on the customs, right? And
Yeah, did
they
that.
had a whole year of being paid off their sick time, a whole year. They didn't have to go into work, but were paid, and then they retired after that. So they used
Yeah,
up their sick time, which in this particular case added up to a whole year. So they were paid for a whole year using up sick time when they weren't sick. And that's my biggest issue with that. It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
yours to, it should not be yours to use as a
And it
holiday
shouldn't
order.
be. And it shouldn't be
It
yours
is
to
an
convert.
insurance policy for people who get seriously ill.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be yours to actually convert to cash either.
Well, if you're sick, yeah, and you get paid for that day,
You're sick, you
that's
get paid
okay.
for that day. Yeah, that's why it's there. But what I'm saying is, when you're not sick and you retire and you get either a year off, or you take the money as a cash, cash handout. No, it's not right.
Well, almost I didn't get sick days. I didn't get sick days on any job I've ever had, except for when I worked for OPG as a temporary, and I would get a half a sick day every 3 months or something like that, because of our contract, right? But so after half a sick day every 2 months or something, I forget what it was, but that's the only experience I've ever had.
You had 2 sick days a year.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So
in fact,
the idea, so you've got to remember that most people out there don't get sick days.
No, I know.
But those people out there, that waitress and that janitor out there mopping the floors at the casino or whatever is paying their taxes to the city, and they don't get a sick day, but they're paying taxes to the city so that everyone in the city can get sick days and use them as holidays instead of sick days.
Yeah. I know it's a big problem with sick days, and it's been a problem worldwide.
Yeah,
it's not.
I love the idea that we have sick days, but the idea of accumulating them and then using them is wrong. Very, very wrong.
Sick days is an important thing, because it's there for exactly the time. We don't want you showing up. We don't want you showing up when you've got COVID lungs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bubonic
plague is right out.
Yeah.
Go to a different country.
Yeah. We want you staying at home when you've got COVID lungs. Don't bring it in here. Right. That's the important point about sick days. But what we equally well, but the point being is they shouldn't be traded for other things.
Yeah. What else we got on schedule here?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got some. Okay. So, where were we? Okay. The Niagara region. The federal government has issued a warning for wastewater violations in the Niagara regional, in the Niagara Falls waste treatment plant.
Yeah, well, we have an old waste treatment plant, and these are fines that don't carry any warnings, that don't carry any fines.
Yeah.
And this is rather peculiar, because the feds absolutely know that our equipment is failing, and that the capital investment of a new sewer system is happening, but they continue to issue these alarms, even though there's nothing you can do about them. Working with the feds, feel that it's important to just keep issuing these warnings. I suppose that's what they're supposed to do, but they're kind of redundant, because the city knows it can't fix it up yet. The region knows it can't fix it up yet. The feds know they can't fix it up yet, but they issue these warnings, but these violations. Yeah, the violations are happening, but it's mostly because of equipment failure in the age of our infrastructure.
Yeah. So 48 different breaches in wastewater effluent regulations since 2021.
Yes, and that is well explained here. It says that now the feds issued the Niagara region warning and so on and so forth. It seems as though the councilors, the regional councilors, were unaware of this. And according to the article, hey, how come no one told us? Why were the regional councilors unaware of the dilapidated condition of Niagara Falls treatment plant? Well, they should have known, I guess. But of course, we are building a brand new sewage facility in the southern part of the city there.
Yeah.
And this is going to take a while to do. In the meantime, our aging sewer facilities or effluent treatments are substandard, and they're old. And
well, exactly, and the whole treatment plant on Stanley Avenue has passed its useful life expectancy, and done so by what I think is about. It's past its it passed in 2010 or something, a long time back, right? Useful life is done, right?
yeah, it did a pretty good job for its day.
Yeah.
And but I say, like, I feel a redundancy here when the feds are issuing violations warnings, and
well, actually,
and yet they know exactly what the problem is. They have been working with our people, I guess, and the region full well knows. The Niagara Falls Council full well knows. The feds know. The province knows. Everybody knows. But what is the purpose of issuing violations when they know that this is going to continue to happen until the new facility is up and running?
And it's a question about getting that new facility up and running ASAP. And again, another one of these things that they knew 15 years ago that the Stanley Avenue water treatment was past its useful life, right? And they delayed on the action. And is it on our city? I think many of the city council members were around back in that time and have, did little to fix it back in that time.
Well, I think that's rather unfair because, well, in a sense, maybe they should have pushed for it sooner.
They should have.
But the city recommendations, the finance department, and stuff like that, always delay these things until the inevitable.
I know.
And we see it now that the city has to replace nearly its whole fleet. And I can tell you from people I know that work for the city, a lot of their equipment is junk and old, and is costing the city more money to keep it fixed than buying a new one.
Yeah.
They only look at year-to-year expenses. So if a certain truck costs $80,000 to fix, and a brand new one costs $220,000, they'll go along and fix it 4 years in a row because it looks like it cost $80,000, and they don't want to see the $220,000 price tag.
But again, what we need to be doing with this kind of stuff is we need to put them on a cycle, a rollover cycle of replacement.
Well, yeah, that's ideal, and most of the city vehicles equipment actually go past their expiry date, so to speak.
We know, yeah.
And well, there's lots to be said about that, but but we are in the situation we are in now, and I don't know how we can treat the effluent any better. Right now, they have effluent going in. These violations, there's 48 of them. And what it means is when the effluent goes into the water, it will kill fish.
Yeah.
So if they determine if you mix the effluent with the existing water that's there, that is poisonous to the fish that are there, and they use rainbow trout, I guess, as a means of determining that. If they kill half or more of the fish, then that is a bad situation. It's not good. In our case, it killed 60% of a fish. The mortality rate was 60% of the fish. So that's not a good thing. I suppose by issuing violations like that have no teeth, it's a means by which to keep nudging the government along to try to get something done. But you're looking at a combined effort here. You're going to have to get money from the province. You're going to have to get money from the region.
I was thinking that actually, what you were saying, because there's usually, when you're dealing with things like water treatment plants or any large infrastructure project, you have to be talking about federal, provincial, and municipal monies going into the bill.
Okay, for anyone who doesn't know, effluent is liquid waste or sewage discharged into a river or sea. Now, the spokesperson for the region, there is no quick fix. We simply have to work through it. We have been working very closely with the ministry. They are well aware of our progress. Now, that's because, as you said, our sewage treatment plant is too old. It's long since gone past its expiry date, so to speak.
Yes,
and I think it was rather the city, of course, did not reasonably come up with a time frame to replace it. Nobody wants to put that.
We have plans now, but it always seems to me that we're slipping on those plans.
Hasn't the construction started?
Yeah, the construction has started, but I'm just kind of, my gut feel on all of this is the construction started at least 5 years too late, and it's been progressing at way too slow a rate speed.
Well, if you want to accelerate the pace by which that is built, but again, have to come up with big time overtime costs. Yeah, because if you want to throw another 25 or 30% of men on that,
I know
hours.
And again, I'm not an expert at actually create. I know very little about how you create an effluent plant, right?
Well, you're going to have your civil, you're going to have your mechanic. There's going to be your millwrights. You're going to be iron workers. They're going to be civil guys. Yeah. They're going to have to lay down concrete. It has to be the right kind of concrete. It's going to be reinforcements and all these other things. So it takes skilled men to put this thing together. Now, what you want to do, you don't want to rush it because you want to get it right. And if you don't want to rush it, then you have to hire a lot more guys to throw on the job. And that doesn't always work. Sometimes you get in the way of one another. So what you want to do is get the job done in a timely way and make sure that it's good. But if you want to accelerate the pace of that, then you're going to have to throw men at it. And that costs. And you're going to have to pay overtime because that costs.
Okay, so Peter Biker put up a comment on YouTube. Friday, August 16th, Assistant Crown Attorney Michael Lucifora seeks to criminalize peaceful protesting under the guise of "for your safety." This is the first of its kind test case. I'm opposed to that kind of thing.
Well, Assistant Crown Attorney Micah Lucifora should go to jail himself for even bringing that up.
Yeah, I'm not. We should protests are a part of our democratic way of life.
Yeah, like the trucker protests in Ottawa, and as much as I didn't like them, I was all for them having the right to do that the way they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
In time they should have sort of mitigated their impact on the city and the people that live in the city. But let me put it this way: the government came down heavy-handed on those and got away with it, and the Supreme Court says you can't do that. Whatever you did, you couldn't do it. But they got away with it, including restricting people's credit cards and money transfers and everything else like that. It was a heavy-handed approach to a problem they were more frightened of than for no reason.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That is an indication of what can happen if guys like this guy, Luciforo, gets his way. Demonstrations are essential, you know.
Yeah, absolutely essential. Whether that is you know, 3 men and a dog standing outside outside City Hall with a placard, you know, with a placard criticizing Matt Cisco or you know, or Diodati, you know, that's their right.
I didn't know you had a dog.
I also very rarely go on some of these demonstrations, but yeah. He says a good topic for tomorrow. Actually, Peter, we actually have a topic for tomorrow, which I mean, been holding off on. We have actually Sandra McKinnon coming on tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about the two questions really in this regard. One is in relation to liquor, basically the impact upon liquor upon our society, and also the question of homelessness in that regard.
Yeah, homelessness, addiction, and stuff like that is going to be the issue tomorrow. But we might be able to take that on next week.
Yeah, I would happily. I think we should do some research into that next week. I'd love to actually work in that direction. All right. Okay. So
thanks for tipping us off.
Yeah. So thank you. I think we should go research that one, Dave. And you know, and see what we can come up with and deal with that next week. Okay. Thank you, Peter, for your suggestion. I think we're always open. All right. Okay. Thank you there. All right. Anything else for today? Because I think we'll leave it at that point.
I think that's good for me too. So without further ado, I bid you adieu. Thanks for listening.